At Rubber Band, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubber Band. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive.
Think you know Video My Job? Think again. We're no longer just a simple mobile app for video job ads. Think of us as a library of employee story videos embedded on your career site. Kind of like your very own YouTube, except you own the platform and not the marketing team. With Video My Job, you have a suite of enterprise-grade tools to plan video campaigns, send filming links, stay on message with AI scripts, and automatically brand your content. Want to know how we're helping talent teams like Deloitte create and publish 102 fully branded employee videos in just 4 days with zero editing required? Book a demo with Gav at videomyjob.com.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubber Band podcast, where I am joined by special guest Dan Nuroo. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So, my friend, I was going to say old friend because we were just joking about our age a moment ago, and I feel terrible saying that, so I'm just going to say my friend. My friend Dan Nuroo from the Talent Initiative. Welcome today, mate. How you doing?
Good evening. How you going, mate?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. The sun's out, spring's happening in Melbourne. How is it where you are?
Same, Melbourne same, but hay fever got me yesterday. The spring started and I was struggling for Zyrtec. It was one of those mornings.
I know. I was the same. I went into the CBD yesterday, into work, into Richmond, and I pretty much sniffed the whole way on the V-Line train and felt sorry for all my fellow passengers. But it was just hay fever. I almost feel like I need to get a jumper that says, it's just hay fever, it's not COVID.
Hazmat suit to walk around in to make everyone else feel good, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mate, I'm really, really excited to catch up today and have a chinwag with you. And, you know, this is all about getting to know the person behind the recruiter and for you to share some of the wisdom you've learned over the years. And look, I always think the best way to start is to go back to your childhood and learn all about baby Dan. So, Dan, tell us about that. Tell us about growing up and tell us about your history.
Oh, baby Dan was all in black and white, if you ask my kids, and the photos are all etched into the side of a cave wall. I grew up in Tassie, actually, so I was born and bred down there, just outside of Hobart. Beautiful, finished year 12 there. Nice, easy life. It was great. There's not overly much to do, can't get in too much trouble, and there was freedom to, you know, there wasn't many stresses that I see me as a parent and other parents now worrying about their kids. I don't think my parents were overly. I was the youngest of 5, so by the time I came around, as long as I was home and in one piece, no one really cared. Moved to Melbourne in 93 for uni, and unfortunately been going back less and less. A stretch of water in between Melbourne and Tassie kind of keeps me away a smidge. Mum's still down there. I've got a sister down there still, so it's good to go back every now and then when we can.
And what part of Tasmania are you from, Dan?
It's cool. The suburb I grew up in is Rosetta, which is just outside of Hobart. Everything's about 10 minutes away from everywhere down there, so it's nice and easy. So my high school was called Rosetta High at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. My primary school has become public housing, so that doesn't exist anymore. So proof of pre-uni education is not really big there, so, which could explain a few things, I suppose.
Yeah, so when you were in high school, Dan, what were you thinking in terms of career and where you were heading? What were your passions and what were your interests?
Look, if I'd stayed there, everything was probably pointing me down the accounting and commerce path. I suppose that's where the classes I'd taken were looking at, etc. When I put my and this was the days before you had to get an ATAR score and things like that. I was doing HSC, so I had to pass 5 level 3 subjects to matriculate over the course of 2 years. And my high school only went to year 10. So for year 11 and 12, we had to go to a new school. So my theory was I do my 5 level 3s in the first year. Second year, I know some people. I'll turn 18 and I have a lot more fun. So I did that. That worked. But I had no idea of the system of getting into uni and all that kind of stuff. So when I put down my preferences, I can't even tell you what I put down. But I put down – I know I put down what I really wanted to do on about the 4th or 5th preference, especially for the unis in the mainland, thinking they're not going to give this young Tassie boy his first option. And so I put arts down as my number 1. Yeah. And bugger me, I got it. But I only found out I didn't know they were back then they published acceptances and stuff like that on the newspaper. I'll probably have to explain what a newspaper is to people nowadays too, I suppose. But I didn't see it. You know, we got a letter on a Thursday, and enrolment was on the following Monday. So I was able to pack up everything in my little car and jump on the Able Tasman as it was, and moved out of home with like 4 days' notice.
Wow.
Thinking of me as a parent now, I feel for my parents. There was no long-winded, no long discussion. It's like, I've got in, see ya. And, it was all done. I did an arts degree. I wanted to go down the HR path.
Cool. Right.
My dad, and the reason for it, when I was 16 or so, my dad got laid off from a place where he'd worked for over 30 years. And it was done horribly. It was literally a pink slip was put in his locker, right? You're done. Don't come back on Monday. There's a payment. Bad luck. And I didn't understand it overly well at the time or at all. But his whole identity was wrapped up in his job, in who he was. It was who he was, I suppose. And it really, really affected him.
Mm.
There was only a couple of times I saw the old bloke cry, and this was one of them. I mean, it was horrible. Yeah. So ever since that, I thought there's a better way you can do this, right? Surely there has to be a better, more humane. So I thought I'll go down that path. Didn't work out quite that way. I've got a subsect to HR, I suppose. So did the whole uni thing, travelled for a year after uni, and struggled to get a job when I first came back. However, the first role I got was an HR coordinator. Was the official title of what it was in the newspaper at the time. It was at a recruitment agency, and they weren't wrong. I was coordinating their resources who were human. It was a resourcing role inside a recruitment agency, so I fell into recruitment that way, and it stuck.
That's a does.
Now, 20 years later, what else am I doing? Yeah.
So tell me, before you moved into recruitment, had you had any other roles? Were you working casually during uni? Tell me about your very first job.
Very, very first job was in between year 10 and year 11. And this is when I was a boy story, which I love and I did it because it was love for the kids. So that was, I worked at a moss farm.
Oh.
Which it was about, I had to start the job started at 6 o'clock in the morning, and without a doubt of a lie, I had to walk for an hour to get picked up by someone to drive me half an hour to this place. So it's a great when I was a boy story for my kids. And then when I got dropped off at the end of the day, I had to walk half an hour home or an hour home, and away we went. It was good fun. That was literally working in a hothouse, getting rid of mud and sticks out of the moss that they just pulled out of a swamp, and they'll pack it up and export it to Japan.
Right.
And for taking home, after a full week, I would take home $180 in my pocket.
Right.
And I was quite happy with that. I bought a pair of Reeboks in my first pay, and Mum absolutely cracked it that I'd spent $150 on a pair of sneakers.
And I hope you didn't wear them to the moss farm, because they would have been destroyed. I mean, yeah.
I did a long stint at Sizzlers for a while. so that was fun. A group of people I met at Sizzler. That was, and then I worked at all through uni. I worked in a servo console operator all the way through there, and that was learned a lot from doing that as well. There was the boss when I was a boy stories came out of that as well, which was good fun.
Do you know what? You've connected with a few things for me. You've taken me back to, I suppose, my history. Firstly, the moss farm. Because I was a florist, I used to buy those bags of moss, and I never appreciated what was going on behind the scenes, right? And then you talk about Sizzler, and for those who don't remember Sizzler, it was an all-you-can-eat restaurant that was very popular in the 90s, and I grew up in Campbelltown, and we weren't an affluent suburb, right? So Sizzler would have queues around the block. It was incredibly busy, and we would go in there and we would stuff ourselves silly to the point there were people throwing up in the bathroom. Like it was very 90s chic, right? I remember it very well, and I remember eating way too much soft serve ice cream and doing the same in the bathroom as a kid.
It really was.
Oh, it would have been entertaining. But so what I'm interested about is, moving into, you had this passion for HR, and, your father had, not a great experience when it came to a redundancy at one point, and you moved into a recruitment agency to do resourcing. What was it that drew you to, look at that opportunity? What was it that made you go, oh, do you know what, I might give this a crack, and it might be the best first step for my professional career?
I honestly didn't understand what I was doing. Pure and simple, I needed a gig. It had been 6 to 9 months of looking hard as a young grad. This again, as I said, the title of this ad was HR coordinator, and so that piqued the interest, and I applied. And when I went through the interview process, I really didn't understand what I was going to be doing. But you deal with you play with the cards you're dealt, and I was lucky enough to be offered this gig. I've gone through a number of other interviews. I don't think I interviewed really well as a young lad. I don't think I understood what it took to interview well as a young lad, and I didn't have a lot of guidance around there. Walking around in a suit that probably looked like it was my dad's, about 5 sizes too big, which is hard to believe now. There'd be a suit that was too big for me, but I was a lot littler. And I was lucky enough to be offered the job, and it was a job, so I said yes. Interestingly enough, a couple of weeks beforehand, the guy who ran the service station I was working for offered me like a management traineeship to work with them and go through that with BP, because he was going to go on holidays. He wanted me to run his servos while he was away, and I'm not sure why or how or what kind of happened, but I knocked him back. It really wasn't on my radar of what I wanted to do. I didn't think I went through uni to go through a management traineeship, whether it was ego, whatever, I don't know. But it was hard to say no. But once I did, almost immediately, this other opportunity turned up. Crazy how that worked out. And I stayed in that first gig for 5-6 years, I think.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's incredible. So when you hit the tools, I mean, you didn't have a lot of expectations of what a recruitment agency did or what the day-to-day of the roles were, or, what would happen once you started, your career, and you stayed there 6 years. So tell me about when you did hit the tools. What was the reality of that role? And did it meet any expectations, or was it just all a complete surprise?
Complete surprise. I was a blank. I was the definition of a blank slate. The only thing that really worried me or upset me was I was earning way less than most of my other mates. Most of them getting grad roles at the time. They were probably earning 30% more than I was. I don't even think they knew what they were doing with me to start off with. My very first day, I rocked up super excited. My energy wasn't really matched when I came in. It was a bit more of an inconvenience, I think. Literally, someone got a folder from somewhere and quite literally blew dust off the top of it. Here you go. This is our quality manual. Read this. first half of my first day was reading this, which I had no understanding of what it was. And I spent a lot of time, and resourcing at the time wasn't what I call resourcing now. It was essentially the office bitch and do whatever I was told, whenever I was told, and do that. Entering stuff into a database. Databases were relatively newish at the time. Resumes were coming in either via post or via fax or anything like that. We had hundreds of filing cabinets around the office where they would be stored. And someone's skills were manually entered into this database for future use and stuff. And I spent a lot of time doing that and updating that and all those kind of things to start off with before I even started talking to people. So long, just being that guy.
So at what point was it during this role when you thought this might be the industry for you? Like when did that happen, or did that happen later? I mean, you were there 6 years, so I'm assuming at some stage you were getting some enjoyment from the role. But when did you decide, do you know what, I think I'm going to become a career recruiter? When did that happen?
Yeah, that took a while. That took a few years to get to. Again, I was playing the cards I was dealt. Dad stayed at jobs forever, so you have to stick it out and see what happens, right? And so I was working with that. And bluntly speaking, I hated it for a while. First few years, absolutely hated it. My now wife, at the time, she went into HR, and it was like, yeah, I do all this HR. Dan does this little bit. It's kind of felt like and when you start talking, when I got to the point where I had to talk to people, clients would hate you, candidates would hate you, everyone kind of hated you, and you felt like you were car salesmen, lawyers, you were hated down in that. There was not a lot of love for what I did when you talk to people, even if it's just calling people and updating. What are you calling me for? I don't want to talk to you. A lot of that kind of stuff, right? So that's it. Built resilience, right? Which is, I think, a core skill that everyone needs to have a bit of. It really was when I found some online forums. So I found recruitingblogs.com, it was called at the time. And oh shit, there's a community out here. Okay. And they had this thing, it blew my mind at the time. There was a chat room, and I could sit in there and just talk recruiting with people. And I met some people there that are still mates today. So Steve Levy and Albright and the Recruiting Animal, a whole bunch, Dave Mendoza, people all over the place that were happy to chat and share. And Bill Borman, before he became this Bill Borman, this was corporate Bill Borman. All these people just chatting and sharing stories and things in that. It was a glorious time. Then the ATC started. Trevor put up at an event in Sydney, and he bought the first one I went to. He bought Shelley Steckerl out, and he was talking sourcing and all this kind of stuff. And I was able to talk I changed jobs by then, but I was able to talk a boss into allowing me to go, and that just blew my mind. From that was okay. It can be a profession, not just a job. And once I discovered that, then, the rest is history, I suppose.
And I think that's really beautiful as well. I mean, it's talking of Trevor and Joe Boland, who joined later, like to think that you're at that first ATC and it's in its 18th year now, and we all still get that. It's still powerful, right? Like it's a wonderful conference that we have, and community is key in our industry. We have quite a lot of communities now, including rubber bands, obviously. If you haven't joined, everyone join. But, there's so much out there that, we do feel connected, and we love learning from each other, and those kind of forums are so beneficial to each of us. And, it's important not to take that for granted, right? And the history of how that all evolved and how we developed as an industry, particularly here in Australia.
Yeah, we're the poor cousins of the HR group, right? We're just the recruiters, and you would introduce yourself as just a recruiter. They were just used to just do my head in, but it wasn't a thing. It got down the track a little bit, and the value add of recruiters started to gain a bit more momentum and things. I remember having a very misguided conversation with my wife. Was I'd go on I do all this HR stuff. Dan just does this little bit of recruitment, and I'd had a bit of success by then. And I was like, well, what do they pay me twice as much as you get paid if I'm only just doing that little bit? Not the smartest thing to have said. They did me real well, and I never said it again. But getting confidence out of it, as opposed to just being kicked all the time, was a really important part of my evolution, I suppose, in here. Else I would have just been floating, I think, and gone selling something else somewhere. So no, the community, as you said, there's heaps of them now. It's wonderful to see, and watching that grow, and not just with the professionalism, but the connectivity and the sharing. Even at one stage, late 90s, recruiters were almost seen as UK expats that would come in and would have a hardcore, down the line, boiler room style, trying to recruit and closing companies and stuff like that. There was a lot of boiler room kind of action, or Wolf of Wall Street for a bit more of a new age kind of reference. So it was the market, the industry was seen like that, but it has matured, and again, you can see it. It is the value adding, and it's seen as a competitive advantage in a lot of places now, not just an adjunct or a necessary evil.
Well, speaking of evolution, I'd love for you to take me through your career from that, after that 6 years in agency. Where did you go? And take me through, take me on that journey.
So, the agency gave me a lot of opportunities to try things, right? So I'd gone from the resourcer to I got to account manage, then I got on to a large account that they had. They put all the kids on these large accounts because they didn't charge that much, and so they didn't pay us that much, so they still made their money. And I got to run a team there, and that was gold. I then moved in-house. I moved to a software house as their first dedicated recruiter. There was an HR team there that would do the HR stuff, and recruiting was an adjunct, but I was brought in there to do that. I think I stayed there for 7 or 8 years as well. And that was an experience. Again, through that, the evolution of the role, the evolution of what I could do to show, I suppose, we were still getting, most of our resumes were coming in hard copy. So letters, faxes, things like that. Look the fax up, guys. You'll see what it is. I had to beg to get a box for all a bin for all the resumes to get rid of them securely, or else we'll sit there on a Friday either shredding them or ripping them all up, bags and bags of shit. It was a different time. I had to make a bet with the CEO to use Seek. So Seek was only new, and we were advertising in. So it was an IT company, advertising in the Tuesday Age. Back in the day, you'd spend a third of the thing. You'd spend thousands of dollars to get your stuff in the Age. You're paying by the word, and so you'd have to try and shorten words and all this kind of stuff to save money. And from that, they were advertising in my career. I think it may have been called back then. I think that was the Age as adjunct. And I went to the CEO and I was like, we're not really getting enough applications here. Why don't we try Seek? I've tried it before. It doesn't work. Like, come on, let's just give it a try. And I'll make you a bet. If we, again, not a great bet. I'm not a real bright guy. All right, this is not something I recommend. But the bet was, I bet you it's going to work. We'll increase our thing, and if it doesn't, it'll take it out of my pay. Right? It was pretty much a week or 2 weeks' pay at the time. Anyway, it was what we were going to spend. And he went, all right. So, unfortunately, well, it worked. But if you look at two sides of the bet, is if it works, I get more work. If it doesn't work, it costs me 2 weeks' pay. So there's a lose-lose for me as far as it goes, right? But it worked, and then we added on that, and that made a big difference to what that was. And, from there down the track, it was a lot later that, LinkedIn came into the world. And that, again, was another game changer and something else that was going to kill recruiters and change our world, just like the job boards were going to and all that. And still was there and all that stuff. LinkedIn came in. And towards the end of my time there, 2008, 2009, I remember, and so early days of social media as a thing. I remember arguments with the C-suite about the blogging I was doing, about the time I was spending on LinkedIn, about all that kind of. You're wasting my time and money by doing all this. I mean, I was doing most of my own time, but that was irrelevant. And I remember I left and went to tried another thing, and I went back to this place as a potential client for me, and I got an apology. And no, I've seen the use of these things now. Oh, really? So yeah, maybe sorry about that. And I've got these two young lads working on social media stuff for us. And then I made another mistake. You told me they had 1,000 followers on LinkedIn. Right, this was early days. 1,000 followers. No, sorry, on Facebook. It was 1,000 followers on Facebook. I've gone, that's amazing. What are you doing with them? He's gone, what do you mean? Well, what's the point in having it? Are you trying to get more clients? You're trying to get more candidates? You're trying to increase the candidate experience? Why are we doing it? And he called these two young lads in. I mean, they would have been grads themselves, I suppose, at the time, just coming out, and started grilling them as to why they were doing these projects. And I just kind of backed out and went away. So, yeah, the evolution there, we built a team up. Again, the team went from here to Queensland. So, again, that was a good evolution for me, learning to manage people, not just here, but also interstate and doing that. I mean, this is also early days of interviewing via Skype or whatnot. I remember having to go and actually ask to get a webcam so I could do Skype interviews from New Zealand. I was targeting New Zealand at this stage. I didn't want to have to spend weeks and weeks there. I said, how about if I just do this? I set up a webcam, we'll do this. And the COO of the company said, hold on. If we buy a webcam, that's just for porn, isn't it?
Oh, gosh. Okay, right.
And he was running an IT company. And I've gone, well, I'm sure there's a market, but it's probably not what I'm going for. But again, it took me 2 or 3 weeks to convince them to let me buy a webcam so I could actually converse to people kind of face to face.
Wow.
So that was cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And did you remain in internal recruitment or have you from that point done both internal agency? Tell me what kind of roles have you had since then?
Look, I went there. I went agency for a little bit, which we thought was going to be more of a consulting business and selling and teaching people how to recruit socially. So recruit with social media and things like that. We built up a whole training regime and things like that with some amazing people to do that. This was GFC's time, I suppose. And there wasn't a lot of extra budget for that. And it became more of a revenue you had to get revenue, which the easiest way was go back agency kind of style. So that worked for a little while. And then I went back internal again. Majority of my stuff since then has been internal.
Right.
So that mostly professional services, things like that. I had a stint a couple of years ago in health sector. And that was a lot of fun. Big team there where I think most problems were solved by throwing people at the thing as opposed to broadening, looking at technology and other issues there. Then back into internal again and till, 8 months ago where I went, well, this will be it. I'll give this a crack again.
Oh, yeah, and I can't wait to hear all about that. But before we talk about the Talent Initiative, tell me, Dan, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned over the years? You've had such a rich and diverse career, and you're full of wisdom, as I know. You're the Dan that we all love. that's not afraid to give us that those insights. So what would you say have been the biggest lessons you've learned over the years?
Oh, our role hasn't changed. I'll be blunt. There's lots of bells and whistles and toys and stuff that go with it, but we're around to add value to a business, and that's by getting the right people at the right seats at the right time. If we do, all the other stuff disappears. That's the core thing. That's our value add. There's a business problem. We need someone to be able to do this or add value to us this way. If we can't provide that, all the other stuff's irrelevant. So no matter, everything's changed, all the new toys, it boils down to that for me.
Fundamentally, we're still doing the same work as we did when we kicked off, right? And I agree. We just have technology and processes to make it easier, right? But at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing.
But it doesn't make it easier. It adds more things that you have to go through. There's more channels you have to be aware of. There's more things like that, all to get the same result. It broadens it, right? I think it allows you to target better. I think it allows us to do our job better, but it still comes down to the same thing.
Agreed.
The old school adage is there. The other one that stays the same is it's all about the conversation.
It is. It's the human skills of a recruiter that, even in this age where we're all talking about AI, where we're all talking about tech and tech advancements and where we're going to be in the future, the human skills remain. So I want to talk about the Talent Initiative. Tell us all about what you're up to at the moment, Dan.
So, the Talent Initiative is, I don't want to say just trying to be all things to all people, but it's not. It's, again, I've been in this market for a hell of a long time. One of the things I enjoy is connecting people and businesses and seeing things flourish from there. The easiest part to understand is the people, the talent acquisition space. So helping clients identify and attract the right people. That's the bread and butter, I suppose. But, if the markets are a bit tougher, people aren't hiring that much, there's other aspects of that whole employee life cycle that I'd like to play in, whether it being keeping a track of resource management and planning of the people you currently have. I've been guilty of working with someone that I hired maybe 10 years ago and still seeing him as the little grad that I may have hired 10 years ago, as opposed to this guy who's running teams of 50 people and is an absolute magnificent specimen of a professional. And I still see him as a little person over there that I once hired and, was scared to death. So if I'm doing that, I'm sure a lot of other people have the same kind of biases when it comes to people that they've hired from a long time ago. So, resource management and planning of what people have done in this to keep up to date from that is. So I'm connecting with some people who do some really smart things and trying to connect.
Look, Dan, congratulations. I'm so thrilled, and I'm so thrilled to hear how well it's doing. And, listeners out there, jump onto LinkedIn, follow Dan and check out the Talent Initiative. You're doing such amazing work. Now, finally, what advice would you give to anyone out there who is either working in recruitment at the moment or perhaps considering a career in recruitment?
I don't want to say run.
No, that's terrible advice. No.
Yeah, fun. No, look, it is a lot of fun. It's tough. It gives you many kicks up the bum as you get pats on the back. You have to be resilient and trust in yourself. Take the advice that you're given, but use it with an open mind and maybe think about where the advice is coming from and if it is relevant for you. If it's relevant for you, take it on and run with it.
Yeah.
If it's not, or if there's a bit of bias that maybe they're trying to sell something and there's a thing there, maybe let it go as far as that goes. But connect, converse, and don't be afraid to ask.
Collect, converse, don't be afraid to ask. I'm going to take that because I like that. I'm going to steal it. Sorry, Dan, but that's great advice, mate.
No, mate, recording this, they know it come from me. It's all good.
I know, right? I can't get away with it. But Dan, mate, as usual, it's been so great catching up, and thank you so much for joining me for a Chinwag today. It's just been absolutely fascinating hearing about your journey, and again, congratulations on the Talent Initiative. You do great work. Super proud. Well done.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it. Sorry for waffling on so much, but I'm old. So I can.
They're used to it. It's me as well. So, waffle away. Thanks again, Dan. Take care, mate.